Hey everybody, I'm Nick Griffin here, and welcome back to Baba Is You. Let's go ahead and get back to this finale. Oh good, we're already here. A way out. Alright, so last time we investigated messing with this. We put Kiki in here. We tried getting Izpush in through here. We tried a couple different things. I didn't actually go back and check to see if we had done this before. But yeah, so Kiki's move is really final. So whatever we're doing with that needs to be something secondary. But I think, I don't know, the way I see it, I can't do that. I was gonna set it up here, but we have to move Kiki, and Izpush goes in here. So it all comes down to order and what we do. So I think, so we can do the belts. No, we have to do it this way. So if I look at the belts, like, what am I doing? That's supposed to be Kiki, not the word Kiki. So if we set up Kiki like this, we can use Kiki's move to set up turning the belts on. We can't spare anything else, Izpush or anything, because we can't get it out. We figured that out last time. If we go ahead and make belts push or something interesting, we lose the Iz, or we lose the ability to make the belts, the ability to make the belts shift again. And I don't know if we need the belts to shift again, but it feels like we do. Like, okay. This is promising. Like this? Does this work? I think this works. It totally does. Why was that so easy? Oh, that's what happens when sometimes you just take some time off looking at things. Okay. So obviously we can just make flag win. But if we make rock weak, we can make flag end. Oh. Yeah. Oh shit. Everything is flowers. Oh, I have to collect them all. Why not Kiki? I have not collected these in the most efficient way possible. I will tell you that much. The belts are still shift. Oh my. The end. And we got the achievement Baba is end. Alright. Oh, I can't move. Made by... Okay, this is interesting. Alright, so, I was not expecting it to finish that level that fast. Because now we're 5 minutes into this episode and we're done with the game. And by done with the game, I mean there are still some levels left that I think we didn't do, like some alternate levels, like places. I know in the last place there was definitely some stuff that we didn't do, but I am not planning on going back and doing them. So this is, I believe this is episode 51, which means we've been playing this game for just under a year, considering that I release episodes 1 week at a time. That means I've been playing for 51 weeks, which means that I have been playing for just under a year. Pretty much a year. It pretty much counts as a year. That's a long time to be playing a puzzle game. I know that some of our other puzzle games have run pretty long as well. But I don't know. I have very mixed opinions on this game. I love a lot of the mechanics that they put in place here. Like it's a pushing tile game, but it also like it's a pushing game, but it's also a logic game. So it's not just figuring out how to push things, it's figuring out how to push things and change the rules to your advantage, which I like. I like that a lot. Oh, that is a sleepy Baba. Thank you for playing. Well, thank you for making the game. Now we're back to the main menu. So yeah, the base concept of the game, I very, very much enjoy. And if you go back to the early episodes of me playing this game, I haven't done so personally, but I'm pretty confident that you would be able to see that enjoyment in those early levels. Like very obviously, I was, if I remember correctly, obviously it was a year ago, but if I remember correctly, it was like I was very animated. I was like, oh man, that's really cool. I love this. This is so neat. The problem, and I don't want to say this was the problem, as though that problem was a deal breaker, because I have enjoyed this game every single time I've played it, but when it comes to actual good puzzle game mechanics, it fell short a couple times. And for those who don't know what I mean about that, let me put it this way. I've mentioned it in some of these episodes, and I'm pretty sure it was some of these episodes, and I've definitely mentioned it in other puzzle games. But puzzle games are all about logic, about taking the situation that you're in and whatever game mechanics are involved and bending them to your will so that the solution is achieved. That is very generic and very broad, because that's kind of what it's supposed to be. You're supposed to be able to apply that to a puzzle game, whether it be this or Into the Breach, which I would consider a puzzle game, or gosh, I'm trying to think of some of the other puzzle games. I'm not really playing a ton of puzzle games right now. I guess Pedestrian. We just finished Pedestrian. About learning like that, bending those things to your will. This is a more traditional puzzle game in which there's no time pressure generally. I mean, there's time pressure in that, like, something moving, you might have a certain number of moves, but that's like a different kind of puzzle limitation, right? But that's the whole point of a puzzle game, is to bend the mechanics of the game to your will, to beat them out in whatever they're trying to do to thwart you, in order to be able to succeed at the puzzle. Like that's the point of puzzle games. And the way they do that, or the way they can do that, is by generally making the game more and more complicated. You start with very simple ideas, like moving flag. I mean, we can look at the start, right? Baba is you, flag is win. one of the mechanics is you can, you know, walk around. And you'll notice that before I even looked at this level, I started walking around. And boom, you know, you can get to the flag. Basic concept. Nothing crazy. And when we look at the next level... Wait, P pause. Oh, right. I just hit escape to pause. Wall is stop. They're teaching you that you can break rules and that you can reform rules of your own. So right now, in these early levels, we are learning mechanics. We are learning mechanics that allow us to, or that we will be building on in later levels in order to do everything. Everything. Like making and breaking rules is the thing. We are now being taught that we aren't always going to be Baba. In fact, we are a wall. We can make a flag as stop. And we can just make flag win. I don't even know if this was the intended solution, but that's what I did. We probably could have done some other stuff. In fact, I bet you we could have done other stuff. I'm going to do something else. I don't know what, but I'm going to do something else. Maybe I'll just make... Yeah, I'm going to make flag U. And I'm going to make... Oh, this is going to be difficult, actually. I want to make wall win. Just because I can. Like, we're taking mechanics and we're breaking them down and we're doing weird things with them. So now that we've learned that we can break rules and we can make rules of our own and we can do weird things because these pieces are just pieces, despite the fact that the name is called Baba is you, anything can be you as long as you can make the rule. And then we learn about sync and we start learning about the mechanics, right, of how different things work. And then we learn that we can just be like, oh yeah, this intended goal that we were going for, fuck it. Right? Like, it was impossible to get to the flag on that level. So you had to realize that you needed to make the rock win. Rock is push. And now we learn that you can... Basically, it's a little bit more detail about how push works. Because nothing was actually, like, the skulls were defeat and they were stopping us, but they weren't stopping the rocks. So you can see how these levels at the very start are teaching us a whole bunch of very basic concepts. But at the same time, they're also asking us to do other things. So this one I think I like a lot. Lava is hot, Baba is melt, so you will die if you go in there. But you can also just make the lava push. I remember, it took me a good long time to figure this out. Because it's lava. It's just sitting on the ground. So this one is reinforcing that idea that you can make whatever you want. A lot of these levels, once you understand concepts, are very simple. Like, once again, we break wall is stop. We still have to deal with skull is defeat. But then we just go, wall is you. Bam, done. And look, I mean, it definitely took me time to figure this out. I'm curious, I could go check and see how far we got, or how long it took to get this. Alright, grass is stopped, but you'll notice that wall isn't. So we just... Like, it makes you... This one is basically more like a check the rules sort of situation. But it also is teaching you that you can double use... You can double use these objects, the words. We're double using is there. We haven't done that yet. And then we go into a new level and we kind of start to understand how this is going. So Baba is you in sync. And Jelly is sync. So we learn about and. That's what this one is. Right, like, pretty simple. Nothing crazy. But all these puzzles, what they're doing, and I've been using a very extended point, is we are slowly learning new rules about the game. And here, I'm just gonna stop. So that was like less than 9 minutes to get to there. I'll go ahead and bite. The screen's gonna freeze a little bit while I go ahead and dig into to see how many episodes it took me to finish to get that far. But while I'm doing that, I can talk. So the whole idea is that those puzzles slowly build up, right? And we get more and more complicated rules, and we build on them to learn more and more things, which I think is good. I think that the first levels of this game did it very well. Unfortunately, and I do mean unfortunately, I think they lost sight of this as the game went on. Like, I actually think that there are just a couple of levels. Actually, we made it a lot faster than I thought. Actually, let's just check. I'm just going to go straight to the first episode. How far did we get in the first episode? Okay, never mind. I burned through these hella fast. It took me actually about the same amount of time to get to where it was. So, okay. But either way, my point is that those puzzles build on knowledge and teach you new mechanics. There are multiple puzzles in the middle that require you to use what I would describe as arcane interactions or unexpected interactions in order to solve a puzzle. Which means that it's not knowledge that you have. It's something that you have to try completely random and out of the blue. Now, I don't think that's necessarily bad. But because the rules engine in this game is not always clear about how certain things are going to happen, or at least they don't go deep enough in teaching you exactly how the rule engine works, that some of those are troubling. Like, they're troubling puzzles. They're not the puzzles that I would like to see in a game like this. So some of the puzzles are just hard, and that is true. Some of the puzzles are just hard, and those are frustrating because they're hard. And that's okay. Those are fine. But there are a couple that were just a little bit too arcane for me. And that's just like, oh yeah, if you knew that when you were doing this, I'd have a hard time going back and finding them. But I think one of the ones is the ones with the ice, where you had to move the ice and use it to push something all the way up a shaft. Like, there's a long shaft, like, right here, and, like, flag is wind, and there was stuff in here that would prevent you from doing things. And you had to move a whole bunch of ice from, like, over here down here and shift some things, and it was weird. And those I didn't like. The empty stuff was also a bit off. I didn't like that mechanic personally, but that's a personal dislike, not... I don't think there was a fault in it, explicitly. But I think they could have taught some of those a little bit better. They introduced them in, like, one level, and immediately you're using them in the next level, which is generally okay. But then on, like, the third or fourth level, they're like, oh yeah, and by the way, there's some arcane thing that you need to do. And you can argue, and I wouldn't say that you're explicitly wrong, you could argue that those levels where they're trying to have you do something kind of arcane with them are them introducing you to that concept. But some of those things interact in ways that nothing else interacts with. So getting from point A to point B, unless it is very explicitly explained in a very simple level, generally doesn't work. Because if that level is complicated and requires you to have a guess, because this is a game that has alternate solutions, you run into the problem of, is this solution that I'm going for the correct one, or am I actually missing a mechanic that I am not aware of that would make this trivial? Because they do a good job of constraining your possible solution. And from what I understand, the bonus levels, the ones that aren't numbered and like you unlock and stuff, and tend to be modifiers of the level that they are attached to, are like the original solution enforced kind of thing. Like the original solution that you're supposed to go for in the puzzle, but there are extra pieces or extra things there to enforce you to use that solution. That, I think, isn't bad, having those as extra levels that you don't need to do. But to constrain someone to the specific solution that you're looking for, sometimes, but not always, is a little inconsistent. Obviously, you kind of know what you're going for, but there are occasionally some main levels where there are, 3 solutions, and then there are some where there is only one. And that's, like, by the end of these levels, there's one solution. There's only one solution. If you find another one, or if you think you're going for one and it's not the main one, you're probably going to be wrong. Once again, in a puzzle game, that's not bad. It's just inconsistent. So there are times where you're like, oh yeah, I can do this interesting, clever thing, but then a lot of the times I can't. And that kind of takes away from, like, the initial awe and wonder of the game. Like, I can manipulate this in crazy ways and make it mine, right? I think having puzzles that have multiple solutions isn't bad. I think it depends on what your goal is for the game. And at the start, it felt like the goal was to have multiple solutions for levels, and then that sort of petered out. And that sort of comes with difficulty, right? If you want to make a level hard, you kind of hide it between one way of solving it. Like, most puzzles have one way to solve them. You can't take a jigsaw puzzle and solve it in a different way. So there's nothing wrong with it. It's just, as I said, an inconsistency. And there were a couple times where that was a little frustrating. Like, on an overall idea, it's like, oh man, it'd be really nice if, we could just do stuff. Like, we could just do the thing that we wanted to do. So yeah, I don't really know. I don't really know if I dislike the game for that change, but I think that change is worth noting, right? It goes from a very open, figure stuff out, be clever, to I need you to think exactly like we thought. And that was a little bit surprising as we went. As for the other stuff in the game, I liked a lot of the stuff that was going on in the game. The alternate weird meta levels where you could turn levels into things were neat. Like, I liked that. I liked that you could kind of go a little bit deeper. And as I said, I know there are levels that I've missed and haven't done. Maybe I'll look into how far they are. But to be honest, for the last 10, maybe 15 episodes of this game, I haven't really been all that interested in playing. And it's not so much in my head, I go, I don't really like this game anymore. Because if I reach that point, I'll tell you guys, and I'll stop playing a game. Like, I played this game a good bit. I didn't finish it, but I'm kind of done. Like, I don't think I enjoyed it. The nice thing about playing roguelites is a lot of times you can finish games and be like, oh, I beat this game, I'm done with it. Even though there's more progression I could get, I'm done with it. This is a game that obviously has a discrete ending. Granted, there's extra content that you can do, but in and of itself, it has a discrete ending. So I definitely have felt my own internal pressure to get to that discrete ending. But pretty much every episode that you have watched has been recorded the day before, with me going, oh shit, I have to play Baba Is You, of those last 10, 15 episodes, or 15, 20, whatever I said. So there's been just this lulling, I don't really feel like playing this game right now. And that's partially because a little bit of my ego is on the line when I play this game. I'm playing a puzzle game. It requires me to be smart and solve things. I like to think of myself as pretty smart. I think a lot of people do. It's nice. But this game challenges that. It makes it hard. And some of those levels that were just really arcane and you just kind of had to know this is how this worked, really hurt the desire to play that, because you look stupid. At least in it feels like you look stupid. You feel bad about those moments. When oh yeah, if I had just known this, or if I had just out of the blue tried this, then I would have had a solution. Because there's at least a couple episodes where I spent the entire episode, the first 5 minutes solving the puzzle from last time, because that extra week of sitting around doing nothing let me look at it in a completely new perspective. But then I spent the entire rest of that episode stuck on a different puzzle. There are definitely a couple episodes like that, and I think that's unfortunate, personally. because that makes the episode less entertaining. And I think that's also part of the pressure is, well, I think a lot of these episodes have not been very fun to watch because it's me babbling about how I'm stuck on a puzzle the whole time. So I think this game is playing it fresh. Like, if you had all the solutions and you knew all the solutions and you were just burning through the whole thing, I think it could be interesting because you could be talking about how the puzzle is solved because you already know how it's solved, and so you don't get hung up for long times just staring at the screen going, oh my god, what do I do? So if I think you had all the solutions and you were just burning through, you could create a very interesting, like, I think that could be interesting content. I also think you'd have about 10 episodes worth of content, tops. But playing it blind the way I did, I don't think makes for good YouTube content, which is why I think I probably should have cut this off sooner, but I'm also a little bit of a completionist, so I kind of also wanted to finish. But overall, and I want to make it pretty clear that it's very easy to complain about a game and what you believe are its shortcomings or why it is inconvenient for you, a la YouTube content. But overall, I think this game is a good game. I would recommend this game to somebody who likes puzzle games, hands down, without trying. I would recommend it a lot to, I think software engineers are kind of what this game feels targeted to me because it is using what is almost programming. Like, I guess maybe it's just because that's the lens by which I view these things, like setting properties, and things like that, turning on flags. Like, that's just what this transforms itself into. I'd be curious to see if somebody else who is not involved in any sort of programming or logic, like a construction worker, or like a doctor, like just somebody who doesn't think about lines of code and properties, and somebody who's not in that mindset, I'd be curious to see how they would approach this game, just to see what they would do, if they would pick up on the concepts quickly, or if it would just stump them because they don't think like that. I would be curious to see, but I think most of the people making content don't necessarily fit that description. Oh, I could be wrong. I don't know. A lot of YouTubers that would be playing games like this, I feel like they've always said that they do some sort of programming or something like that, right? Like, it feels like that's the case. I don't know if that's true or if that's confirmation bias, because it's probably confirmation bias, but it's one of those things that I'd be curious about. But also, I think if I was watching that content, it would be a while before I actually figured that out while watching them. So either way, I think I've rambled on enough because we've already reached the normal length of an episode. But in the end, I believe that Baba Is You is a good game. I think it has some flaws, and I don't think it's necessarily a particularly watchable game. But I think that it is a game that is worth playing because A, it's not expensive, B, if you want to, you can not dig into any of those meta levels, and I think it's a lot easier of a game. I think those ratchet up the difficulty level by a significant margin. And also, I think it's just a fun concept to play with, and it makes you think different than you normally would. And I think that is a good thing for a puzzle game to do and makes it worthwhile to play. So, that's going to be it from me. Next week, you guys will have a new game here. I don't know what it'll be. I'm looking forward to making a decision. But, until then, keep your gears turning.